right, we're going live, everybody. All right, welcome. Welcome to Tea and Chat with me. My name's Julia Harrell. I'm a clairvoyant teacher and a spiritual guide. And I want to talk today about the telepathy tapes, a clairvoyant teacher reacts. And the format for this 30-minute time with you is that I'll discuss a topic each week as it has to do with spiritual development, clairvoyant development. I would invite you in the live chat to ask questions, and you just might get a little mini read in there with your question. And each week I'll be doing some different topics. If you have a recommendation for a topic, I'd love to hear it, and we might just cover that. Today, I want to hit a really hot topic that's out in the podcast world, and it's seeping out into the ethers for us. And that is this Telepathy Tapes podcast. And this just caught my attention. It's caught a lot of attention out there, even people like Joe Rogan talking about it. The founder of this, Kai Dickens, has been on podcasts everywhere. And she's a filmmaker that is doing this podcast series around nonverbal autistic individuals, and came to discover that they're highly telepathic. But that's just the tip of the iceberg with their abilities. So this is, of course, not new for the spiritual community, but I think it is tremendously exciting and a paradigm shift for all of us. So in this podcast, hello to Rosie and hello, Miguel. Great to have you here. If you have any questions, I welcome you in the chat there. What happened in this podcast, and it's so exciting to me, is that they started out by doing your basic tests. They have these nonverbal, highly autistic children. They can't, or adults sometimes, they couldn't communicate regularly. It takes fine motor skills and sometimes have trouble just with body mechanics in general. And through these series of tests, they would do like double-blind test with somebody in one room with a card with a color or shape or a number or something, and somebody else in a whole nother room. It's all double-blind, scientific method and so forth. I'm not a scientist. I cannot speak for any science here. I want to speak to you as an expert on clairvoyant development. But just to paint the picture, they're doing these double-blind tests, and now that they have these communication boards for the nonverbal autistic individuals, they can start to communicate and answer. And they were getting like 95% accuracy. If you put a regular old psychic in a room, they would not score 95% accuracy. Likely, not a whole lot of us. I wouldn't, because that's not my expertise of seeing things that way. But the fact that they scored so high just blew everybody away. So they got their attention right away. And then they're discovering that the autistic individual was not only able to just pick up colors and shapes. That's like kindergarten for them. It's like, okay, I'll play the game for you. But then they would start to use their communication board for more involved communication, like one individual really tuned in to their mother, and they would go, oh yeah, I could see that, energetically see that the autistic person was home and mom was out shopping. And the autistic person could see, oh, I see you went to Target first and then you went over to this other store, but you forgot something, so you went back. How in the world would you know that unless you're tuned in on that level of consciousness, of awareness? So all of this discussion on the podcast series, which I have nothing to do with, I'm just fascinated, blown away by it, because it's opening the door and opening the eyes first for the families of the autistic individuals, the teachers of the autistic individuals, but further, they're seeing so much more highly developed psychic abilities that they can score off the charts, making it undeniable. So all of us that have been doing these woo-woo retreats and spiritual training and stuff, there's an expanded group of people starting to realize why that's important. Let me give one example. There was Rosie says, super amazing. I know, you got to check it out. Wait till after this, though, and make sure and share and subscribe and everything. Yeah, they just found more and more opening the door to where these abilities are on such a high level. And it's interesting to me. So I'm looking energetically, right, as a trained clairvoyant and stuff. And I say trained clairvoyant, we all have it in us. And you've heard this rhetoric before. Everybody's psychic. Everybody's got this. It doesn't mean you want to read the future for somebody. It doesn't mean you want to, give a healing. But we all have these intuitive, innate abilities. You could tune in simply by being aware. How about before you open a door to go in a new room you're going in, maybe it's a colleague's office or you're walking in a store or something, just take a moment, tune in. What's the energy that you're picking up using your intuitive senses? What are you already picking up before you open that door? Oh, there's kind of a frenzy going on. You open the door. Oh, there's a big sale today. So everybody's kind of in a frenzy there. Or maybe you walk into an office of your coworker. You just take a moment before you open that door and just kind of tune in. Oh, there's a lot of sadness energy I'm aware of. We're just doing our work like usual. So I don't know why there'd be sadness. And you open the door. Oh, there's been a loss. And so we all have these innate abilities in us, and they can absolutely be developed. I started to say there was an example of a teacher that was working with nonverbal autistic individuals and started to realize just how telepathic they were. One example was somebody said, oh, they came in late and they said, oh, you're never going to believe why I was late. And before the words were even out, you're never going to believe why I was late. The autistic person is already typing away turkey. And she went, that's exactly right. There were 3 turkeys crossing the road, and that's why I was late. So how are they picking up this energy? So that's interesting to me too. Where are they seeing this information from? Because we know in spiritual training that there's different levels of awareness. We have our physical body is the slowest moving, dense energy. We have another layer, etheric layer, just beyond that. We have the astral layer where we go to sleep and the dream space, and we go out and we have adventures, we take classes, we do all sorts of things there. And there's all kind of the mental level, we kind of figure things out. There's lower and higher mental, and then there's spiritual levels up there too. So for these autistic individuals, it's not only just being able, to me, it looks like not only being able to dial in like a radio frequency. I want to be aware of 96.3 right now. So I'm just going to have that radio that I'm listening to. To me, as a trained clairvoyant, it doesn't look like it's just that one frequency of maybe thoughts, which you think of as telepathy, of picking up thoughts. They look like it's broadband, like I'm getting 96.3 radio, but at the same pop, and then I'm also getting country 106.2, but then I'm also getting the classical station at 114 or 0.3 or whatever. I don't know how high the numbers go, but it looks like they're really picking up broadband. So I'm so curious about that. If we haven't met, my background here comes from studying since, I would say, the early 90s. I started in a more esoteric training of meditation as a service to humanity. Then I got a little later in the 90s into clairvoyant development, and I've been in training ever since then. I'm taking another class this weekend, and I want to stay tuned up. I want to stay present and aware. This training is not from me, of course, that I'm offering to others. It comes from two master teachers above me, Louis Boswick and Michael Tamura. And I got to work with Michael for the last, I don't know, 16, 18 years or something of his life. And he really trained us and prepared us for to be teachers, to go out and do exactly this, which is sharing this information. Rosie left a smiley face, super amazing. Miguel, is that your hand raised? Ask a question on the chat. Be happy to talk to you. Or maybe just saying hi. Hi. So this training comes from a lineage of master teachers that could really see beyond the veil and gave us these tools to be able to help everyday people to be able to open their abilities. And I'd be so curious if, I know they would, if these tools would help the autistic community. I do have experience working with some, and the outcome has been just nothing short of miraculous. I'll give you one example, and in both examples, the parents have done extended testimonials and are just very grateful. So in one situation, there was, I don't know the diagnoses code. I am not a mental health expert. Nope. I am not a scientist. Nope. I'm a spiritual teacher. That's my expertise. So I'm reading energy. And in reading energy, it can be extremely healing for the other person too. So I offer private sessions, healings, and classes. I love helping people open their own abilities. So I'm working with this autistic, this mom. So I'm working with this mom who has an autistic grown daughter. I don't know the diagnoses codes, but I know there was danger of self-harm for the young woman, and she's not able to care for herself and really needed someone present with her to help with everyday activities. And it was assumed that's just what it is. And that's just the way it's going to be. Hello, Kristen. And so that was the assumption was, okay, I have this, she's thinking, I have this adult daughter. This will just be it. I'll be with her, you know, until I leave. And then, oh gosh, what's going to happen when I leave? Is she going to be okay? Is she going to be safe? That was a real concern for this mom. And we had a couple sessions, and I did some healing work on the daughter. There were some external energies that were in the way, you could say in the way of really getting in the body. When I read autistic people, it's like, they're so bright. They're so bright. That's the first thing I notice. Like in this example, I'm reading the mom, the autistic young woman didn't need to be on the phone. You can look at her energetically. But the first thing I noticed was, wow, she's super creative, like really creative. Like, what does she enjoy? Art or something? Yeah, she's an artist. And that's the first thing that always catches my eye is just how highly creative and how bright they are. But then it looks like, you know, we have this physical body, and then we have the energetic body, which is huge. And it's like the energetic body, the soul is just like a little finger in there, just like a little bit. And then, you know, the body's trying to figure out how to operate with just that much of the owner in there. And so I was working with this mom, and there was some energy in the way of this very creative autistic young woman of coming into her body. So I just helped her clear some of those energies out. And some of the stuff that was getting in the way, that was being dangerous to her, where there was danger of self-harm. But most important, too, was helping the mom. The mom was going through her stuff as well, and gave her a couple tools like learning to ground herself and ground the room. So by learning to ground the room, it made like a safe space for both of them to be in. The mom told me later that she used one of my recordings, and she just played it out loud in the room, that they're both kind of unconsciously listening to how to ground a room. So it was just kind of plugged in. Well, fast forward, that young adult that was home, just home all day, um, being cared for, is now, she got a job, she got an apartment on her own, she met a boyfriend, she got married, and there's, it's absolutely off the charts, astonishing. I'm not taking credit. I'm saying by saying hello, spirit to where that young woman was, that she was really highly creative and she's a very caring, very compassionate individual. Saying hello to her first was, I think, a big transformation, and to get a couple of skills and of clearing stuff out in the way that she could come in and be more present to operate the body, and to get out there and share herself with others instead of just being at home, guarded uh, by her mom. So that was pretty extraordinary to me. Some other things they talked about in this telepathy tapes was that they discovered, and this is just the tip of the iceberg, you guys. I think it's that I would expect it next to get into healing and to get into beings that they're talking with. And that can be regular old deceased loved ones, or it could be some weirdos. I think it's going to get real interesting. So the next thing that they find on the tapes is Rosa says, amazing documentary on Netflix. Love the spectrum, such a feel-good documentary. Beautiful souls. Yeah, this is transforming a lot of people who are seeing this as previously this was an audience of individuals that was just kind of tossed aside. Even medical community would say, oh, they're only like a 3 or 4 year old in their awareness or something, and they're genius on the other side of it. So it's changing our paradigm, how we're looking at things, but there's so much more too. So one of the things they also found was that these nonverbal autistic people were talking to each other in a virtual space called the Hill. And of course, I was very curious about that. That's clairvoyants are very curious. Not to be a clairvoyeur, but I was curious. So I went into meditation and I said, well, I want to see this hill and I want to go visit this hill. So I felt like I was above it, as I wasn't in it and listening to every conversation, but I could see them. And I said, hello. I said, hey, I'm a clairvoyant teacher, and I want to help you guys with your clairvoyant ability. Does anybody want some help? And only a couple of hands went up, and I went, oh, first, they're totally confident and capable in their abilities. Well, I know that. Their abilities are beyond mine, but I can help them be in the body and access and use them. And so then I thought, well, I'm asking the wrong question. And so then I said, well, would anybody here like help in feeling less of the emotional energy of people around you? Think empath on steroids. And every hand in the place went up, every single hand. I said, well, I'd love to help you. Let's figure out how to do that. So for anyone watching here that is intuitive, that's empathic, sensitive, highly sensitive HSP, this is really going to open the door for more training, which is come in, get some training. That's what I do. By the way, a side note, the next class coming up is January 11th, one-day workshops, $29. It's called Awaken Your Spirit, what did I call it? Awaken Your Spiritual Journey, I think. um, the 11th, January 11th. It's on my website, 𝗤𝗓𝗓𝗏.com. And then I have a class looking at the year ahead, setting a new course that starts the following week. We not only look at the year ahead, but we help smooth it out for you. So you're developing your own clairvoyance the whole time. So, oh, shoot, when I bounce around, I forget. T, anyone? Miguel says, I like that. documentary on Netflix. I haven't seen it yet. I've just seen a clip, and I saw these podcasts, but I know she's developing more. Yeah. So some of the other things that they saw in the, by the way, if you're in the live chat, if you have a question or if you want a mini read on something, go ahead and put that in the live chat and we'll get to you. So I'm just so fascinated because they're discovering, okay, they're telepathic. Okay. And then they go, okay, well, wait a minute. They're communicating from somebody could live in Singapore, somebody could live in New Jersey, and they're virtually communicating perfectly, just like you and I in a room on this space called the hill that's created for them. Well, what's next? Then they start to realize that some are one young person I just heard of that decided to play some music and had access to like the library of all music. And so every instrument he picked it up, he could just tune in like that radio frequency. Okay, I want to play like Hendrix. Okay, start playing that. Or hey, what's that song I like by Ed Sheeran? Dial it up. Oh yeah, yeah, yeah. Or piano, and then go over and pick up the drums or whatever. It's truly amazing the extra skills that they're coming up with. Of course, this is not surprising to the spiritual community. We go to retreats, we work on our Zen, I have people coming to my classes. I have my advanced healer group, shout out, that's doing awesome. And we're learning this because we don't have a choice. And I think these tapes, this podcast is starting to open the door for people that, okay, it's one thing to have an autistic person in your circles and you realize I need to be aware of my thoughts because as soon as I walk in the door, that nonverbal autistic person in the examples of these tapes, I'm not saying across the board everywhere, but the examples that they're showing the possibilities. If I'm not watching my thoughts, this person is going to tune right in. And if in my head I'm going, oh, that rascal that just got in my way on the freeway, and if I walk in a session to work with an autistic person, for example, and I'm going in my head, oh, that rascal that got in my way on the freeway, and oh, I'm so mad about this, and that person, I'm so mad about that, and you're having all this, that autistic person is going to feel it. I was saying earlier, like empaths feeling emotions and energies around you, but on steroids. So all of those of you that are also listening, that are intuitive, you're tuned in, you're highly sensitive, spiritual seekers, it's not a choice for us. For us, is it? It's like we have to develop these. The first ability to often wake up is the ability to feel energy around us. And it makes it real, doesn't it? If you just have a thought go by, you might not think, oh, is that my thought? Or yeah, whatever. We don't realize how powerful it is until these examples of working with these young people. But for an empath, you start feeling, you go in a room and maybe there was just a big loss. Somebody just had a big loss. And then all of a sudden you're overwhelmed by that energy of grief. But you were having a good day 5 minutes ago before you walked in the door. What's happening there? I talk about that a lot on this channel because that's my specialty, sensitives and helping to dial down the energies we don't want, which in this case might be, I don't need to feel the grief of a room full of 20 people to know that there's grief present. I don't need to feel and embody the grief energy in order to be compassionate for the reason why there's grief energy present. What we do in the clairvoyant training is we learn to turn that down, like take that volume knob, turn that down. And this is in certain energy centers in the chakras in the body. that govern the ability for clairsentience, clear feeling, one of the clairs, and we start routing the energy up more to the center of the head where you can see and know truth. So instead of walking in a room of 20 people that are experiencing a grief or a loss of some sort, and the only way to know that there's grief is to match it, not absorb, to match that and then also feel grief. What we're going to do is we're going to turn down that clairsentience ability and we're going to route the energy up so I can walk in and, oh, I can see and know there's grief here. I can still be 100% compassionate and empathetic to them, but I don't need to match it to understand what it's about. So that's often the first ability to wake up. And that's going to be a big part of this channel and give you some tips on dealing with that, which I'll get into the first tip here in just a second. But one more plug, make sure that you're liking, sharing, subscribe here. And if you haven't joined my newsletter, you can go to 𝗕𝗓𝗓𝗢𝗄𝐿.com. I'll put a link if there's not one. And probably on the YouTube channel somewhere, there's a link, 𝗕𝗓𝗓𝗢𝗄𝐿.com. Make sure you get on the newsletter list. And if you're interested in that, awaken your spirit, your spiritual potential, that's coming right up on January 11th. It's Saturday workshop where we'll really get going more with these tools. Okay, also on all the socials, Julya Harrell Spiritual Guide, so you can check it out there, ask questions. So the first thing we always do, whether wherever you are in your spiritual journey, if you're way over here where these highly psychic kids are, or if you feel like you're just starting, you're probably not just starting if you're watching this channel. You probably just need a little bit of training to manage what you're running into. So wherever you are in the middle there, the first thing we help people do is get centered in the center of the head, and we get people grounded and in their body. For these nonverbal autistic individuals, they look to me like there's just a little bit of them in the body, just a little bit, trying to operate gross motor skills, which is tricky. So we would do the first thing with them as I would with anybody, and that is to work on grounding. And so imagine a big grounding cord from the base of the spine to the center of the earth. This, for some people, maybe it feels comfortable to do an image of a tree trunk, like I'm sitting on a really solid tree trunk. I feel really good there, and it's hollow, and it's releasing everybody else's energy. Like if I picked up somebody's grief we were talking about and just let that go. Kristen says, oh, then it's Ruta. Hi, Ruta. I'm glad you enjoyed the story. Good. Ruta is very sensitive also, and goes, I'm going to read you for a second, Ruta. Ruta's taking some training too. She's very sensitive, and she goes into a office environment, and before you know it, aware of 20 people in the environment. And because of the nature of the work that's being done there, and like needing to work and stay, make sure and hold on to my job and move forward in a particular way, there's a lot of stress in the environment. And so you take a really sensitive person like Ruta and you walk in that room and then just, oh my God, I'm picking up everybody else's stress. I'm stressed, right? That's the same thing here. So she's learning to manage, master, and take her next steps on all that. So she's not so blown away of what we're aware of. It's just being aware of multiple levels at the same time. So this first tool of doing grounding, having from the base of the spine to the center of the earth, a nice grounding cord. And that's going to be like a big trash chute to get rid of everybody else's energy you might have picked up. And that could include on a telepathic or a thought level, as well as on a feeling level, clairsentience, clear feeling. In the classes, I get more and more into the details of how energy runs in the body. So kind of stepping down from the higher vibrations of where we are on the soul level, how it sort of plugs in to the body, connects, and how we can adjust that. And we know that from looking at it, from reading it. And for me, for working with a master teacher like Michael Tamura, Ruta says, yes, my office atmosphere is very intense. Yeah, and you, Ruta, are extremely sensitive, and that's a good thing. That's like these autistic people we're talking about here, where they give us the example from a real kind of classic example of a group that's just been not taken seriously. We haven't acknowledged how important that sensitivity is. So going forward, how are we going to watch our own thoughts? Now that we know it's so easy for someone else to pick up on that thought. Have you ever sat beside someone and you realized, oh, that person's dressed nice and they're smiling at me, but they think I'm an idiot? Have you ever had that awareness? Well, you can do the same thing of, I'm just going to release that down the grounding cord and redirect my thoughts to something else. There's a whole bigger discussion on all of that, which we'll have for another day. But we've gotten to the end of our time. I'm so glad you joined me. I just think there's a big paradigm shift going on with these tapes. They're legitimizing what we've already been doing, of course, for years. And it's starting to bridge the two, which is very important work. So I'm excited to see what they come up with next. I really feel like naturally you're going to have to talk to the beings floating around, whether it's deceased loved ones or weirdos. And it's going to get into healing, where they'll learn how to, they're already doing it, I'm sure, healing themselves and each other. But of course, this training too, my expertise would be helping people. You're already a healer. Let me help you manage that so you don't get pulled away by what you're aware of. So I'm glad you joined me. One last thing here, 𝗁𝗓, grateful for the information. I'm grateful for you being here. 𝗁𝗓's like the mother of like, what would you call that? What's very motherly energy of taking care of people and keeping an eye. Oh, that person needs this. Oh, okay, that person needs this. Oh, and make sure you get that. So very aware and very helpful with others. Miguel, thank you for your time. Yes, you're welcome very much. So thanks everyone for being here. Same time, same channel next week. And thanks for coming. We'll see you later.